Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 677 with Anisha Blodgett.
Yes.
With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Anisha Blodgett. Anisha, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Always unstoppable. I love it.
Yes, awesome. So this is I would call it one of my unique interviews in the sense that we get a lot of people who have been in the industry for like 10 or 20, 30 years, right? They've spent their lives they've spent their lives in the industry, and we're here to make an example of their story and how they got to where they are. But sometimes some of these folks that get on the show who've been in the industry, it's really hard to spit out. I don't know why I choose to say it like that. People who have been in the industry for 20 or 30 years, opening a restaurant then was a completely different game to opening a restaurant today. The markets have changed, technology is evolving. I just think it's a different game. So every once in a while, I come across folks like yourself who have reached out to me, who are listeners of the show. And when I'm traveling around, I try to look these people up to, go check out their restaurants, see how they're doing, to have a place to hang out, find the leads, right? And that's kind of what was going on here in my research to see like what was going on since I last talked to you. I think the first time you reached out to me was when, like,
before we were even open. Actually, it was probably 2 years ago.
Yeah,
when I was first
like 2 years
getting
ago,
the idea
right?
down.
And I was like, oh, this seems like a cool concept, like. And like we were following each other on Instagram, like I was following your work, and I admired even from a distance, like how well you were at putting, or how well you shared the step by step, and like you took people on the journey of opening your restaurant. I was like, oh, she's got that down, she's nailing that. And then I listened to this podcast when I got here into San Diego, where you were interviewed by what was it, Trust and Truth or Truth?
Yeah,
Thrive
Trust and Thrive.
Trust and Thrive. Yeah. And you did a great job on that interview, and you shared such great advice. And I learned so much about you in that interview. And I was like, I didn't have any idea. Like, she had a background in real estate. You have a master's degree. And I think your story is really inspirational because you don't have any restaurant experience prior to opening this restaurant.
I haven't even worked like a busser job or
yeah.
waitressing job.
So, I mean, I think it's a really inspiring story for anybody who's listening to this who might be discouraged. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I always recommend going and getting years of experience before ever opening your place. It's probably the most safeguarded way of doing it because you have that experience under your belt. But you're doing it, and you're doing it well. So I wanted to invite you to come on the show to kind of use you as inspiration and to get some great knowledge out of you, because I know you have that great knowledge in there. You're a smart lady. So I set the listeners up. That's kind of what's going on right now. So before we dive into your story, let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so mine has been live intentionally, and I think I may have even pulled it off of one of your old podcast episodes.
Oh, that
it
makes me
just
so
resonated. Yeah. And I guess the way I look at it is, in 5 years, if you were going to look back at your life, did you choose where you want to be, or did you just fall into it? And that goes for everything. So your friendships, the relationships you have, the people you're surrounding yourself with, your career path, is it something that you actively wanted and made decisions to create, or
are you reacting to the world around you, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Great way to get this thing started. And you've clearly been very intentional with what you've been doing. So where does it make sense to start telling your story? So, I mean,
maybe
real
just
estate,
my background.
Yeah, like get into it.
Okay, so I'm Canadian. I went to business school in Canada, and then I moved to New York. I was working in commercial real estate investments for a few years. And at that point, I was moving to Europe, and I wanted to do, I thought I wanted to do, and I still love real estate as an industry, I wanted to do more development.
Okay.
And so I did a construction management program I took a master's in construction management. And from there, I realized I wanted to do a food hall or some sort of wellness center. I'm really passionate about health and wellness. And I've been in the fitness industry, not as a professional, but more as an enthusiast for probably about 5 years. And I wanted to create a space that would encompass wellness from fitness, like healthy eating, more of a community space.
That flies being a mess.
And so when I did my master's in construction management, my thesis was on developing food halls in adaptive reuse projects, because I really liked those. So like if you're thinking of old, like the one in Atlanta, that really cool food hall that's there.
Well, there's so many popping up everywhere right now.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of benefits to food halls in the sense that as a restaurant owner, like all you have to focus on is the food, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about somebody coming in and cleaning, or I mean, every food hall is a little different, but really a lot of like the operational logistics stuff is taken care of, and you're just there to cook, which is, I mean, you can get in your lane. If your thing's food, like you can stay in your lane, and there's a lot of power there. What were some of the other lessons you learned through researching food halls? And
well, I was actually interested in being the developer behind it. So not actually operating any of the food stalls, but being the person that amalgamated all these different healthy things in one place.
Okay.
And so I interviewed multiple food halls, and I talked to the architects, the contractors, and the owners of the food halls. And I realized through that process that there was just way too much going on, and I couldn't do that on my own.
Lots of money too. These are big facilities.
Yeah.
You need millions. You think opening a restaurant's expensive, like maybe close to tens of, or probably hundreds of millions of dollars. So not getting close to $1 billion, not a billion, but super big money. Like these are big facilities. So what made you stop chasing that dream, or maybe you still are chasing?
So I guess I finished my master's program, and I had recently moved to San Diego, and I was trying to figure out what to do here. And I realized I couldn't do that. So I was kicking around, okay, what could I do? And I'd previously lived in London. So I was thinking I could do high protein cheese. Maybe it was like a halo top, healthy ice cream. I was just looking at different ideas.
Okay.
And I ended up landing on healthy pizzas. That was something that I was eating when I lived in Frankfurt. So I kind of moved around a little bit.
Yeah.
In Frankfurt, Germany.
Yeah.
Yes.
So London, Germany, Canada.
Yeah. New York. So in Germany, the place that I ate at every single day, because I didn't cook there, we didn't really have a kitchen, was high protein pizzas, and they had high protein burgers, and I just felt good about eating that food. And before then, when I was in my healthy kick, I just didn't eat pizzas, or I was feeling so guilty about eating them. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let me try and figure out how to make my own healthy pizza. And I played around with different recipes. So I looked at like coffee flours, like just alternative ingredients that I could use to make a healthier pizzas. And there was a lot of really bad pizzas in there.
Coffee flour, huh?
Yeah.
How did that come out?
It's a fruit outside of a coffee bean. And you can even buy this flour from Trader Joe's, and it tastes awful.
It's super healthy.
So I was just experimenting with different things.
Yeah. So how did you like, come across the right recipe? When did you know you had something?
I would say I thought I had something when my husband ate it. And it tasted good. And then I had different friends eat it. And then I wanted to make sure it wasn't something that I just liked. So a lot of the brand new, from my real estate background, I knew that a lot of the brand new apartment complexes being built in any city have catering kitchens as part of their amenity space. So I reached out to a lot of these apartment complexes and set up tasting events. So I went there, I cooked my pizzas in their ovens. So I did all my prep at home, brought my pizzas to their ovens, and they were free events just to get feedback.
Yeah. Where did you get this idea? Did this something that just came to you? Did you see somebody else do it? How did you know to do that?
I just knew I needed to get people to try my food to find out if there would be demand for it. Because I couldn't just go open a restaurant.
Proof of concept,
yeah,
right?
I needed somehow to prove it out. And I looked at farmers markets, but with the pizza oven, it just seemed like a lot of work.
Yeah, lower, like you could just literally roll in with your ingredients and use what was on site at these apartment complexes.
Yeah, and I had little feedback forms for people. So I had at least 300 people that I didn't know try my food, give me feedback
all
on
at
it.
once, or
no,
over
multiple.
how many locations?
Yeah,
how many times
I probably went to 5 or 6 different locations.
Gotcha.
And so we did small events like 20 people up to 60, 80 people when it was just a bigger apartment complex. We were pumping out pizzas.
Well, this is one of the things I loved about your story, because I'm always saying, don't think like you need to start with having the brick and mortar. Start today. Start now with what you can do. And what you can do is get feedback on your product. What you can do is invite people to these events and collect emails so that they can grow with you. Like I remember when that woman was, testing recipes in my complex. Now she owns a restaurant. Like I'm gonna go, like, because there's like I'm tired. Like I helped form this restaurant. I gave my opinion on the food. Maybe I'm stretching it a little bit right now, but I guess the point is like that we say do pop-ups, right, to get that proof of concept to grow your brand. I never even thought about going to an apartment complex. I mean, what should we know if we're like, oh, that's a great idea? Like, give us some more advice. How do we find these places?
So if you just look at some of the newer, nicer, most expensive apartment complexes, that's where I started. Because the ones that have the highest like rental rates, those are the ones that have those amenity spaces.
Yeah. And I wonder, what about legalities? Did you have to get permission, or how did that work?
Yeah, I looked into it a little bit. Like if I had to buy insurance, it would have been a lot. Like, it just wasn't worth it. So I did have people kind of just sign in, check in. And when I had them write their email on that little paper form when they were coming in, I just said,
Disclosure.
you know, like you're trying our pizzas from your own free will. And I would say I just kind of took a little bit of risk, but I also tried to just get them to sign something.
Also at the same time, like nobody's doing this yet. So like there aren't any regulations around it really.
Yeah.
Like just sometimes.
It's like a lemonade stand.
You know,
like
what's that saying? Like ask for forgiveness later, like do it now. Ask for forgiveness. I can't remember you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Do you know the quote I'm saying?
I think it's just like, do it now and ask for
yeah,
I think it's something like that.
I can't remember what it is, but that's the whole idea. Just go. I mean, what's going to stop you from getting out there? And anybody who's listening to this, like, why not rent out the space? Why not talk to the tenant and be like, hey, like, why don't we do something for your tenants where we bring everybody together and I'm a chef and like I'll cook a meal for everybody.
And the property managers were pretty pumped about it because, and I did some, and then from there, other property managers were like, "Oh, this is a really cool resident activity. Can you come do it at our place?" Yeah.
See, so I thought that was really interesting. So you had to test the concept. You need proof of concept. What were some of the other challenges in the early days with having no experiences? Or one thing I know that using your real estate background, how did that serve you?
The real estate background helped me with the construction. So figuring out, creating criteria around what kind of team do I want to put in place. So looking at my architect, my contractor, anybody else. Like I was thinking I might need a restaurant designer. I ended up just working with a really good restaurant equipment supplier who helped me figure out everything I needed. Yeah. So just vetting out the people that you want to have on your team in the initial stage.
Who would be on your team? How did you know you needed a team? Like where did you go to figure out what team members you would need?
I did a lot of research. So I didn't work in a restaurant, but I spent all of that time. So I was Canadian, so I was working through my immigration process.
Aren't you technically still Canadian?
Yeah, I'm Canadian. I'm still Canadian, but I didn't have a work visa when I first moved here, so I wasn't able to go in to a restaurant and get experience.
You weren't American yet.
I wasn't. Yeah, and I didn't have a green card, and I didn't want to spend 8 months just sitting around, and I didn't want. And because I couldn't work, I learned a different way. So I used different resources, like a lot of research online. I set up the same way you're setting up podcast interviews. I set up just different meetings with different restaurant owners or pizza owners.
We say that all the time on the show too. Like go talk to people in your market. Like they'll tell you things that are only specific to your market that you wouldn't be able to get this advice otherwhere.
I went to the pizza expo and I was probably the only person there, but because my dough is so different, it's like a protein ground flax, healthy pizza dough. It doesn't cook the same way. So when I went to the pizza expo, I brought all of my dough with me and I went and every single oven was there. So I tested out my dough in every single oven.
Oh my God, I would never thought of that.
And I made them change their temperature settings and fix it to what I would do. And I used that as a free opportunity to just go and figure out what oven I would want to buy.
Oh my gosh, that's so smart. I mean, it just goes to show the power of creativity and just like living in that frontal lobe and like not taking no for an answer. Like, how am I going to figure this out?
Yeah.
Well, don't quit. Like, get creative. Find out way. Like, all these little things you're doing, I think is so impressive. So there's something else I remember from your story. It escaped my mind. I'm sure it will come back to my mind. So you have that real estate background. You don't have any restaurant experience. You knew that you were going to have trouble securing a location because tenants don't typically rent out space to somebody who doesn't have that track record of success, right? Or even getting bank loans. Was that something you had to do?
So financing wise, I had my family invest. So my in-laws, my parents. So I've been very fortunate. I didn't have to go out and convince a bank to fund me. I used family money, but for them too, especially like my in-laws are not immediate family in that same sense. I had to go and I created a full business plan for them. And because I have a finance background, My Excel model is insane. So I did a full financial analysis of what are my food costs going to be? What are my margins going to be? How much do I need to sell? What's my traffic going to be like? I sat in restaurants in different parts of the city, similar restaurants as well as in my neighborhood. And I sat down and I just counted traffic. And I sat close to the register so I could hear the total check numbers. So I could just figure out, okay, what's a realistic amount of traffic I could get in a day? And I did it on weekdays and weekends.
How long were you doing this? How many times would you say you went out to get this information?
Oh, probably at least 30, 40 places.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show that like the job of opening a restaurant doesn't start when you open your restaurant. It starts on the day that there's conception of like a concept. Right?
I probably spent 8 months just trying to, before I signed a lease. So I think I decided in September that this is what I want to do. And I waited till May. I wouldn't say waited. I would say I prepared myself till May before signing a lease and being officially invested in this happening.
Wow. And I think one other thing I heard from the other recording of the other podcast you did that I wanted to highlight here is you took the place of the real estate agents or the property owners. Being a real estate agent, you knew what the no's were going to be, and you started eliminating those no's by being prepared. What were some of those no's that you were anticipating? What was the resistance you were anticipating that somebody who's listening to this might not be aware of some of that resistance because they don't have the real estate background?
So from a property owner's standpoint, if they want to lease their space to somebody who's going to be successful because it takes their property off of the market. For me, I had probably 4 months of free rent. So that's a period of time that they're not getting paid their rental income. So they're taking it off and they're investing in you to actually do a good job and be in their lease for their 5 years or whatever that you signed it. And so I was up against. So this is a second generation restaurant space. It used to be a Papa John's. And so there was demand for this space. There's not a lot of second gen space in this neighborhood. And so there was somebody else looking for this, and they already had 2 other locations for their pizza places. And I was lucky as well as smart in trying to convince my landlord why he should be going with me as opposed to somebody that's already got a space. And I also knew that.
What was your argument? I'm curious before you get into
I just had a full business plan. I said, we're going to be doing something totally different. There's other pizza places in this neighborhood. I don't think that they're going to be successful doing a traditional pizza place. We're doing something different. And the other thing I said is we're going to be investing in your space. So we made their space look a lot nicer. And this is an asset that technically belongs to the landlord, not me. So we put in these garage door roll-up windows. We spent a lot of money on our plumbing. Like the amount of money I thought that I would be investing to make this space what I wanted it to be was a lot more than what the other people were looking at spending. Okay. And this is still really basic. But
so he's saying now the tenant or the landlord is thinking, even if you do this and fall flat on your face, like I
have a better property.
Yeah, I got a facelift. My business got my property got a facelift. That's smart. I cut you short. You were gonna say I also did this really well. Do you remember that train of thought?
No.
Oh, I apologize. I think one other thing that's worth bringing to the surface too in discussing is the trend of food as medicine and food as health first. Where it used to be food as flavor, food as entertainment. I think you're really smart because you're talking about the demographic. Like, listen, like my business concept is better for this demographic, is better for this market. The other pizza is just pizza, whereas this is healthy pizza and we're surrounded by gyms. And I think that was one thing in my conversation when I came in here last week talking to you, like you were talking about the heavy saturation of gyms around here. Do you want to get into that and how that influenced you picking this location?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different things in trying to figure out where my best location would be. So a lot of it is looking at where is my target market, as well as this is, I think, what I was thinking. So I knew that being a brand new restaurant owner and brand new startup, going downtown where there's a lot more demand, like a Chipotle could be looking at the same place, there's no way I'd get that space. So I had to limit myself to neighborhoods or properties that would take a brand new restaurant owner. And I still didn't want to sacrifice the quality of my location. And so it all kind of worked out well. Like downtown I don't think it would have been, like in hindsight, I don't think it would have been better than where I am now. But looking at the brand new buildings in downtown that were on my radar, they just wouldn't lease to me.
Because
I had no experience. Yeah. They were looking at other people that were chains or backed by franchises. There's just no way they would take that risk on me.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's really cool that you're looking at you're creating a new vertical, right? You're taking something that is so, if you're on a diet, the last thing you're going to eat is a pizza, right? Like that's just one of those foods that like you eliminate. It's like it's a treat, like it's your cheat day. And you're saying, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be bad. And you're taking this trend of food as medicine, food as sustenance before, pleasure, and you're leaning into that. And then you're saying, how can I reinvent the freaking pizza, which is one of those staples that, that's a dangerous, I feel like it takes a lot of courage to go and to take something that is so traditionally well known, and then say what you think of this thing is actually completely untrue.
Yeah.
And you're taking the name pizza, which is associated with unhealthiness, and you're saying, nope, it's going to be healthy. I think I'm probably more than explaining my case right here. Take what I've shared and
so I guess just to give your listeners a little bit of background. So Powerhouse is a healthy pizza concept. Yeah. By healthy pizza, I mean we're taking a traditionally unhealthy food and making it something that people can enjoy eating and also feel good about eating. So we've got a protein crust. It's got ground flax in there. It's got like brown rice protein powder in that crust. So a vegetarian pizza, which is kind of how I started. I'm vegetarian. I do a lot of weightlifting. I need a lot of protein. For me, is going to have 50 to 60 grams of protein. And there's no way I could get that from a normal meal. Yeah. And to contrast that, a traditional pizza probably has like 2 grams of protein. So we've made it very nutritionally balanced. We also have a gluten-free protein crust, a cauliflower crust, and then we have a traditional garlic herb crust. And then we've got grass-fed cheese. All our meats are going to be all natural. We've got vegan options, so vegan chicken, a cashew cheese. And then it's, I guess, a little bit different in the sense that we've paired our pizzas with smoothies. So we've got superfood smoothies, salads, wraps. And if you look at our place, it's very white and bright, and it looks more like a juice bar than a traditional pizza place. And so just like people walking by at first are confused. They're like, wait, pizzas and smoothies? And then they learn about our concept and they learn about what we're doing, and then it makes more sense.
That's cool. No, I think it's really interesting because you're creating your own vertical. You out of the gate are the number one healthy pizza place because you're the only healthy pizza place. Yeah. And I think when you can create something, create your own vertical, and you can be recognized as the number one, there's huge benefits in that. It's a gamble because people might not want that one thing that you created, but it seems to be working for you.
And it takes a lot of education. So it's funny. Next week, I'm going to be selling pizzas for a school fundraiser at one of our local elementary schools, but we're going to be selling, I just don't have the capacity to supply all of them, and they don't know how it's going to do. So they're going to be selling their Domino's pizzas and our pizzas side by side. And my pizzas are going to be $1 more per slice. So $2 for Domino's slice, $3 for mine. And it's going to be a huge educational piece because I'm going to bring in like a paper that says, like a little poster that says, okay, so why are you going to spend an extra $1 for our pizzas? Why grass-fed cheese? Why organic white flour? What's in traditional enriched flour? Why like the uncured nitrate-free pepperoni? Yeah. So there is a huge educational piece that goes with my concept.
Well, I think that's a big part of it too. When you can educate people on something about the food, like when they can tie new knowledge to a product, they're going to remember that product because it's that education process is an experience, and when you can tie experiences to food, it tends to serve you in the long run. Anything else we haven't discussed up to this point before we start talking about you actually opening your doors? Any other big lessons during the pre-opening stage?
But I would say one thing I would like to leave is there's always because there's going to be delays. I would say that my husband said, okay, reframe that. Like you're not delaying yourself. And this is even before I even signed the lease, when I was frustrated about my immigration. It's like, this is not time where you're getting delays. This is time where you're preparing more. Yeah. And you're getting better at what you need to do so that you're going to be even more successful. I love
it. Great stuff. We're going to take one quick break to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back to dive into the opening day and how that all went. This episode brought to you by MarginEdge. Never deal with a paperwork nightmare again. All right, we're back. And take us to maybe like a week or a couple of weeks before opening, the whole process of opening. I know you had some issues with finding people to join your team in the early days. That gave you some anxiety. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I would say that when we were wrapping up construction and then I was okay, next step, now I need to hire a team. And you can't hire a team so early because everybody's looking for a job where they can start right away. Especially so my team's comprised of young 20-year-olds. They're not that much younger than me. And I had put the job posting out on Craigslist, Indeed, and I wasn't getting any bites. And in my mind coming into this, I was like, oh my God, Paris is going to be this awesome thing. People are going to love working here. But nobody knew what it was. So there was no interest because it was and it was also over the holidays. So we were finishing up construction in December. So not a lot of people were around or they're just busy with family. We were looking at a January open. And so I would say that from my experience, I felt desperate when I was doing my interviews. There were some people that I didn't feel like clicked, but then I was thinking, you know what, at least they're going to show up and they're also a little desperate for a job. They're going to at least show up to all of the shifts and I can rely on them.
They need me as much as I need them.
Yes. And I think I made some bad decisions there. I think I hired some people that I knew that they weren't like the personality that I'd want to fit, but I felt like I just needed people. And I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah. Well, what happened because of that?
It created a very negative work environment to the point where, I'd have to schedule like a couple of people that just didn't fit in with the rest of the team and just had a very negative personality. I wasn't even excited to come into work and open with them. And I'd have to schedule them with different people. It caused scheduling issues and just negative tension when most of my team was really awesome, really positive. And you want to come into a place with a team that you actually enjoy working with.
Yeah.
It took a while. It was hard to kind of transition them out too, because in California, there's very like stringent labor laws. Mm-hmm. And so once you make a bad hire, it's hard to just get rid of that bad hire.
So what things did you do or have you worked into your operation to protect you from somebody who's not a right fit culturally?
So I now know, like I have my best people. So now we're 10 minutes in, I've got my best team members and I go to them. I say, like, we have a new hire. And I ask, okay, how is he fitting in with you? Do you guys like working with him? Because for me, and even for new, like when I'm interviewing new people, I have them like kind of chat with the new people. Like what sense are these people getting from my existing team? Because I want to make sure that my existing team, I retain them because they're great.
Yeah.
And for them to stay retained, it's not just the pay, it's they've got to enjoy the people that they're coming into work with.
They're also getting to influence the people they're surrounding themselves with. What about on paper? What are you doing? Are you writing down any? Are you getting to sign any? There's a name for it, and it's escaping my mind right now. Basically, codes of conduct, right? Like if you're not dressing the right way, if you don't have the right attitude, like these are our core values, and you agree to uphold these core values. So if you don't uphold these core values or you don't commit to these rules that we set, like you're on your way. Have you worked out anything like that? I feel
like it's just like a personality thing. Gotcha. So when you're sitting down for an interview, that person's on it, right? They're bringing their best self to the interview because they want the job. And so, in the first interview, they might have a really good personality fit. They may be super chatty. And then you might go into the first couple shifts, and maybe they're not that same person that you expected when you first hired them to. Sometimes it's time, like it just takes, maybe it's shyness. They just need to open up a little bit. And that's what we're finding with a new person is just, just they're actually like, I wasn't sure for the first month or so, and now somehow they've blossomed and they
Yeah.
chat and they're taking initiative. So sometimes it's time and sometimes it is just a bad hire.
Yep.
So sticking to that 3-month window of like, this is your 3-month probationary period, and then figuring out, okay, I just need to call it quits. This isn't working out.
But the big lesson I'm pulling from this is, have that standard for who you want to hire, and then don't settle. Because if you settle a little and then you settle a little the next time, and you settle a little the next time, over time, that's going to compound. And you're going to be way off of that original vision you had for the type of person you want to be working for your restaurant. And at the end of the day, we're only as good as the people we attract onto ourselves. So you have to have that standard. You have to put your foot down when it comes to hiring the right people. So what are you doing? So aside from letting your employees weigh in, what else are you doing?
This summer, I've been short-staffed. There's been periods where I've done interviews and I haven't found somebody that I liked, and I've realized I'd rather be short-staffed, have my existing team just cover a little bit more, or just be very open with them and be like, look, like if you call out of the shift, there's nobody to cover you, and I'd rather you keep your hours because they want their hours. I'd rather you keep your hours and wait till we find a good person to join our team than to just hire somebody because we need to fill it in.
Yeah.
And so that's something that like is very transparent with the whole team, and they all had to pitch in when we were understaffed because I didn't want to just hire somebody.
Got you. What about actually opening, like aside from employees and dealing with poor choices for hiring, what else did you have for challenges?
I feel like during that last month or two of construction and the first month of opening, it felt like every day there was a new problem, and then the minute I solved that problem, there was a new problem that came up.
Welcome to the life of a restaurant owner.
And it took a while for me to understand that process and not get stressed over that process and just be like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And just accept it.
Exactly. Like your job is putting out fires and solving problems.
And it really felt like that. Like there would be things like, okay, like my distributor is like, okay, well, our cheese isn't going to come in for another month because we didn't place the order in advance. And I was going to Sprouts and buying the cheese at retail price because I didn't want to open without our grass-fed cheese.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are things to do like that, you got to walk the walk too. You can't promise these things. You can't put these things on your menu and then not give them what you're saying you're going to give them. But you're also, I'm sure, as you're going and as you're realizing, oh man, I have to have this order in a month in advance. You're creating checks and balances as you go because you don't know until you know. Yeah. So are you documenting these? How do you document these new standards and these new practices as you're discovering that you need to build system around them so you don't forget to place that order?
So I would say that I thought I had done a very good job of creating a lot of systems. So before I opened, I had checklists for everything. I had opening, closing checklist. I had very clearly thought of my roles of what I wanted each of my employees, like the different roles that they'd be doing. Yeah. And it just changed. It's just in reality, it's going to be a little different, but I had a very good starting point and I kept adjusting it as I went along.
I think that's important to know that, like, don't be so like bullheaded and thinking that it's going to be exactly the way you envision it, and be willing to adapt. I think that's one thing that you did with your pizza too. We didn't really get into that, but your focus was healthy pizza. But some people are coming in, they wanted more of a traditional pizza crust. And how hard was it for you to budge from that?
I think it's important to know when to pivot and when to just stay true to what you're trying to do.
Your mission, your vision. Yeah.
And so we introduced the garlic herb crust a couple months after opening. I didn't think I'd need it. I thought that we would just have our gluten-free crust, our cauliflower crust, and then our whole grain crust. And our gluten-free crust is very good, and I thought that that would be like our normal white crust. But we had people coming in that were attracted to the way that the interiors looked, or had heard about it from a friend, but were on a different level of healthy than my concept was. So we had to adjust and bring in a new crust. And that was a big process for me because I had not ever made traditional pizzas. Yeah. And traditional pizzas, if anybody owns a pizza place, there's a lot it seems simple, but like learning the time, the temperature, the controls of your dough.
You custom purchased this oven to handle the temperatures that are unique to the dough that you created, right?
Yeah.
So how do you handle that? How are you cooking do you have to have a separate oven for the traditional pizza?
We have a split belt oven. So
Gotcha.
we use a conveyor oven, and we've got 2 different time settings.
Gotcha.
And so from there, we then adjust, like, okay, like, do we put it in halfway, part way in?
Gotcha.
That's how we can.
What else did you have to adjust while opening?
Adding in the menu items was pretty big, like adding in the garlic herb. So a lot of it was paying attention to the questions that customers were asking, and we wrote down all those questions, especially for the initial few months. So I had my team, whoever's taking orders, like if somebody's asking, okay, do you guys have sausage? Write that down. Are we getting requests for, so jalapenos was something that we added in after. A lot of people were requesting jalapenos, so we brought in fresh jalapenos. So just, if somebody's asking for it, keeping track of what people are asking for, because that's
What's
something
that
we're
process
missing.
of keeping, what was your process for keeping track of that? Writing it down, then what would happen to it?
Writing it down, and then also asking for feedback from my team. So when we first opened, we were doing a lot of feedback checks, like every week. Okay, what's been requested for you? What can we be doing differently? What can we be doing more efficiently? And we've got a board in the back that has all of our updates, call it. And then when people come in for their shift, we just go over any updates.
Okay.
So everybody's on top of like any changes.
So when going back to the recommendations, so you would write down this, somebody asked for jalapenos. Where would that piece of paper go after?
We had it in the front, and then as a team, we'd kind of debrief over everything and be like, is there anything else that you feel like we're getting a lot of requests for that we should be adding onto the menu? So that's just for customer stuff, as well as efficiencies in the kitchen. Like, what can we be doing differently, or what do we need to have notes on?
This reminds me so much of Eric Ries's The Lean Startup, and that idea of like you've got to constantly be open to what people are saying in pivoting and adapting. And it's easier to pivot and adapt when you're smaller, because you haven't formed hard systems yet that people have put into habit, right? Yeah. So like, as you know, it's good to like, but at the same time, you don't want to lose focus or you don't want to change so much that you lose your identity. How have you found that balance?
So I guess it's still understanding, like still using high quality ingredients. So our garlic herb crust, it's just understanding that there's a range of what people want. So it's not, and that's kind of our whole concept, right? Some people find vegan to be super healthy. Some people think that the cauliflower crust is the healthiest. And our whole mission is, well, it's what's healthiest for you at any given moment, because that's going to change, right? Maybe one day you've worked out really hard. Maybe one day you haven't been had a lot of activity. So different things are different for different people at different times. And it's just providing a lot of options for you to make that decision for yourself.
I got you. One thing we have to talk about is your social media. I think you do social media really well. You had the wherewithal to, is that the right use of the word? You had you're smart enough to start early. You know, you didn't wait for your restaurant to open. You started when the process of opening your restaurant, and then you were also, I think, just overall, you do a really great job on social media. What's your approach?
So I had my own Instagram account that started as more of a fitness account before opening Powerhouse. And I really leveraged the audience that I had on Instagram to pull them into the journey. So even things like, okay, what pizza toppings would you like? Or does this smoothie look appealing to you? Or what ingredients would you want? I used my personal Instagram to ask and engage people into the whole concept before we were even open. And I also used it to create communities. So because we're a health and fitness concept, where are my customers going to be? They're going to be at all the different gyms and fitness studios in the neighborhood. And there's over 30 within like a mile of where we are. So creating relationships with the other fitness and business owners in the neighborhood to pull on their communities before we even opened, and created like a huge network. So when we did our opening days, we invited all these people that were part of our fitness communities that would be our potential customers, but they would have been a little bit easier on us at the beginning because they already had some sort of connection to me through Instagram. So Instagram's been really huge for us.
So you're developing that relationship in, you know, they're not going to just blow you up because they know who you are now. You know, they're not going to just destroy you online because like there's a personality behind the brand. Yeah,
and they feel vested in our success. They're part of the process. They're really excited about it, and they have those touch points. And so, and then we use Instagram. Like we have I've spent money on having good photographers to come in and do our Instagram feed. That's, I guess, our first impression. So a lot of people say that your website is your first impression. I feel like with our demographic, if I was like, oh, Eric, like I heard about this new restaurant, the first place that our demographic is looking is pulling up the Instagram feed.
Exactly. Yeah. And then hopefully the goal is to get them to go from Instagram to your website.
Yes.
You're recruiting them, pulling them to your website.
Yeah.
When you're approaching all these different businesses, these health clubs and these gyms, these owners, how does that conversation look? How are you getting on their good graces?
So I try to support their business at the same time. So I'm attending a yoga class and then following up and be like, hey, I just like attended one of your yoga classes. I loved it. We'd love to partner up with you guys. We'd like to do a co-event together, or we can invite your community in and do a discount for you guys. We just really like what you're all about. And I think that we fit very well.
So you pump their ego a little bit.
Yeah. But you show how you align with them and how we share. You show how it would benefit them to do a partnership with you.
Yep.
So we can do something for your community to feel like they have, more of a community. So maybe it's a community event or give them a discount. So it's just trying to figure out how we can both help each other's businesses. So cross promotions, like we'll do a cross promotion event with a spin studio, and then we'll be promoting their spin studio on our socials as well as vice versa.
What are the most successful social events you've hosted? Social media events, and using like events with social media included for promoting that event. Like what's the biggest, like, I don't know the right word to use. Like,
so we do a lot of different events. Like we'll do, like workout plus pizza events with our surrounding businesses. We'll do host socials for them. One that was really successful was we partnered with 2 nutritionists and then 2 Instagrammers, like Instagram influencers, and we had a panel discussion.
Do you pay those Instagrammers?
No, they just do because they are excited about showcasing their, it builds their brand as well. Yeah. And so we had about 30 young women in here, and we were talking about body positivity, navigating diet trends.
That's a tight group. I mean, this isn't a huge space.
It was packed. Nice. It was good. And it was just a really nice event where we were showcasing people that we care about and talking about things that maybe traditionally overwhelm our customers when it comes to, should I be doing keto diet? Like I see my favorite Instagram models doing keto. Is that what I should be doing? So just like talking about that with nutritionists.
Okay.
Just like different community events. We've done events on what you could be eating to help your skin. So figuring out a way to create more of a community around what we're doing as opposed to just a place where you come in for food and leave.
What else are you doing with Instagram that served you well?
We do a lot. We try to encourage user-generated content.
Okay.
So we'll put in the pizza boxes a little business card that says share a picture of your pizza, use our hashtag so we know you're entering in a sense, and we'll give you a free kombucha next time you come in.
Nice. And
that's huge because people almost see Instagram as the new word of mouth. This week I had somebody come in and they said, we always ask people how you hear about us if they're a first-time customer. That person said, I saw you on my friend's Instagram story.
Okay.
So how do you get more of those people to keep sharing? So incentivizing them. We've done things where we've done a $50 gift card. So if you tag us on Instagram, you'll be entered to win a $50 gift card. That didn't work as well as something that's immediate satisfaction. So if you share this, you get a kombucha next time.
Okay. One thing I am curious about with the social, I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. How much? Well, first of all, just let the listeners know, you've been open for 8 months now, right?
Yeah, 9, yeah.
Almost 9,000 followers, 8,636 followers. How much of your Instagram success do you think has to do with the beautiful people that are on your account? How does that play into it?
We're just creating a brand around what we are, and we're trying to create a brand around healthy lifestyles and health and wellness.
I think it's one of those things that, if you're a healthy person and you're taking care of your body and you're going to the gym every day and you're conscious of what you're going to eat, you're probably going to be at least physically attractive.
Yeah.
It's
just around.
Do you think that plays into it?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think that it's more just our main demographic of people coming in are coming in from the yoga studio next door. Yeah. So it's trying to create, we just picked up a little basket so people could hang out there, leave their yoga mats near the door. So it's just trying to create a whole lifestyle and brand around what we are versus just a pizza place.
Got you.
And bringing in the beach lifestyle, California, SoCal.
So what haven't we discussed up to this point that you think we need to discuss to feel complete?
Let me think here. I really do think leveraging relationships and partnerships is really big. I've spent a lot of money on like digital marketing agencies or people that said, okay, do these Google AdWords. And I've spent a lot of money on that. And I would say wasted a lot of money on that. For me personally, a lot of that didn't work. Like I've done like a geofencing campaign and it was really expensive. I would say that what's worked the best for us is just doing samples. So going to the yoga studios and bringing samples of our smoothies or
guerrilla marketing, right?
Yeah. Like we go to Crunch, like we just do so many samples at so many of the gyms, which is where our target demographic is. And that's what works. That brings people in the door. And then Instagram. So trying to do more, like trying to encourage more user content to share us and then promoting our posts so that they actually get seen because Instagram organically is very hard. So I would say those are the two areas that have worked best for us for marketing, but like I've spent so much money on people promising the world to me.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't. Like it takes a while to figure out what works for you and it takes a lot of money to figure out what works for you.
Reflecting over this past, over almost 3 years now since really conception, right? What has been the biggest challenge for you?
The biggest challenge is just revenues, like bringing my sales up.
Yeah.
And it's different than what I expected. So it's just understanding how do you stay relevant? Like we'll have customers that come in and that love our pizzas, but then maybe don't come back for 4 months. So trying to figure out a way to stay top of mind for them all the time and be their go-to spot.
And how have you evolved in that vertical of staying top of mind?
I would say I'm still working on that.
Okay, that's good.
I'm still working on that, but I think that like just spending more on the Instagram and having our email list, so like doing more partnerships. We have an Instagrammer, blogger friend of mine who's then done, who we did a collaboration smoothie with. And so she created a menu item. So just like always staying on people's social platforms and maybe not coming from me, but coming from like the gyms that they go to or from the other people that they're following. And knowing, okay, we've done events where we've invited foodie bloggers in, and we won't see any return from that. But then when we have fitness bloggers come in, we'll see 5 people come in from that.
Because those are the people that are going to be eating your food.
Yeah, so it's just really knowing your audience.
Yeah, like the food porn stuff. I mean, that's usually the most unhealthy thing out there, right? It's pretty and it looks amazing, but it's not going to help you lose that extra pound know, at the gym this week. Yeah. So that makes sense. Go to where your people are.
Yeah, and it's seeing what's working and then doubling down on that. So people come in because they think our aesthetics are really cute. So, okay, so we're bringing in people that way. So we're going to, like, what I have on my wish list or what I want to do next is do even more with our aesthetics, like do more paint on the walls, because I know that's what's bringing people in and that's what's encouraging people to share Powerhouse.
Yeah. Awesome. I have loved this conversation. I like to wrap up all the free-flowing portions of the conversation with asking how you've transformed. The mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. How are you different today? Who is the Anisha today versus the Anisha 3 years ago when just breaking out and trying to tackle this project?
I would say personally, I think I've just learned how to balance myself a lot more. When we first opened, I didn't take any days off, and I was slipping into a very negative, like, burnout phase till about a couple months ago. And I realized, you know what, I actually need to have more balance. So just like understanding, like just taking care of yourself throughout the whole process. Because if you burn out, you don't get enough done. And now I wake up early, like I have my rest days. So I wake up early, I get my work done, and then I come into the store, I'm here, I'm giving 100% of my time, 100% of my energy. So it's just taking care of yourself.
So good. It's so powerful. I've loved this conversation. One more quick break to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back. This episode brought to you by MarginEdge. Never deal with a paperwork nightmare again. All right, we're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor? A habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Being able to teach myself stuff. I think I'm very good at just finding YouTube videos, learning.
What's the word? There's a word for that. Autodidact or
I have no idea.
Autodidact? I don't know. It'll come to me later. People are probably shaking their heads at me right now. What is your biggest weakness?
I think I'm too trusting.
Ooh.
Like, I think get influenced easily. So just standing my ground a little bit more.
I like it. What is one question you ask or things you look for during the interview process?
If there's somebody I'd want to work with, like, do I like their personality? Would we enjoy our time together?
Okay. What is your biggest challenge today?
Like I mentioned, just figuring out how to bring in more revenues.
Okay. How are you overcoming that challenge?
We've been focusing on catering a lot.
Okay.
So I've been going out to businesses, dropping off lots of catering menus and incentivizing the office manager. So if you order by November 30th, we'll give you 10% off as an Amazon gift card.
There you go. Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team.
I would say for them, just bring the energy that you want. Like when you're talking to customers, bring the energy. That's what people feed off of.
What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? This is a way you go above and beyond. So it's something that's common within your four walls, not common within the industry.
I think that they do a very good job of like being like, oh, do you want to try this? Do you want to like, you're kind of curious about the pea sauce. Let me go bring out a sample of that for you. Oh, you're like looking at those kombuchas. Here, try these different kombuchas.
Yeah, encouraging them to get familiar with the food.
Yeah.
Even just sitting here and watching you interact with your guests, I think one thing you do really well is you make it personal. You see somebody who's clearly in workout clothes and you try to connect with them. What gym do you go to? You try to relate, would you say that's something that you encourage the rest of your team to do?
Yes, it's a little different. I think that it's always different being the owner of the business than your team.
Yeah.
So I try to, but then sometimes they're shy.
Yeah, well, they're young too, right?
Yeah.
So what is one book that's a must read to make us a better person or restaurant operator?
I really liked How to Hug Your Customers.
Ooh, what was the biggest lesson from that book?
It's just about service. You're selling more than just the product.
What are you selling?
So what else are you selling? So the experience, a community space, a place where they feel comfortable, a place where they feel healthy, and like they're investing in themselves.
And what was the name of this book?
How to Hug Your Customers.
Awesome. This is episode 667. Sorry, 677. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/677. I'll have that book in the show notes. And is that on Audible? I haven't heard of that on Audible yet.
I pulled it up from the library.
Okay, got you. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
Maybe organization. And this kind of goes for anybody. I love Trello.
Okay.
It's got all my to-do lists online.
Yeah. So Trello, the way it works is it's kind of like it's a left to right kind of movement, right? Like where you have, these are my to-dos, these are the things I'm working on, and these are the things that are completed.
Yeah.
And you can customize that, right?
And I think that you just kind of get caught up in like your to-do
Visualizing.
list. Yeah. And so I have different lists for different days of the week. So I have an accounting day and I have a list for my priorities for accounting. Then I have local partnerships day and I've got my list for that.
And this is all in Trello.
Yeah.
And
So I've got a lot of lists.
Are you working alone on this, or do you have other people working off this
I
list?
just use it myself.
Okay.
But like I've split out my schedule.
So that's the free version.
Yeah. No, I have the paid one because I have a lot of cards that I want to have recurring.
Gotcha.
But just like things like, so like I've kind of scheduled myself where Monday is a certain day that I focus on a certain aspect of the business, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Otherwise, you just don't get through everything.
Got you. What was the last question I just asked you? The technology, right?
What people don't do. So just organization, like organize yourself.
Oh, because we were talking about technology.
Sorry.
I was like, wait a second.
Does
did I
it all
skip
blend in?
Yeah. Name one service you've hired. So this is a new question I'm asking. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask this question, but not necessarily a technology, but a service that you've outsourced to another person, whether somebody who has specialized knowledge, right? It could be a designer, an accountant, website designer, or a marketer, or anything along those lines. Somebody that you've went to for expertise who's served you well.
I would say two, like my SEO. I've outsourced that. I thought that was something I could do on my own, but I've hired somebody to just take care of that. And then I would say the other thing is I have a life coach. So
really?
Outsourcing some of the emotional stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. So can you name the name of the person you outsourced for SEO?
Yeah. SEO is called Whiplash, but they're a local company and I think they only work
Okay.
with local businesses.
And who's your life coach?
Her name is Sadie Ackerman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can link to those services if you're in the San Diego area. And this is not the last question. Sorry, I'm still getting used to my added question there. What is one piece of technology? You've already mentioned Trello, but is there another piece of technology that you're leveraging within the four walls of your business? This is a hardware or service as a technology that you can share with us.
So we use Toast for our POS, and I'm very, very happy with Toast.
Why did you go with Toast?
I did a lot of research between the different ones, and they just had all the functions that I wanted. And then I also liked them because they were growing so quickly. So they were always investing in their software. So whenever we had different things we wanted to add in, I just felt comfortable that they were growing the fastest.
Got you. And now this is the last question. It's a doozy. Are you ready for it? If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
I would say live your life the way that makes you the happiest.
That's 1.
And then I would say always surround yourself by good people.
That's 2.
And then the 3rd, you need quality time with yourself.
Yes, that is 3. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for letting me make an example of you. It's crazy to think that you're only 8 months into this and you are as polished as you are. And I'm just super excited for watching you grow into the future.
I've learned so much from your podcast, so I hope that I get to
that was going to be
spread
one.
That
was going to be one question I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
but I got shy. As a Restaurant Unstoppable listener,
Yeah.
How has this podcast? This is a selfish.
I think I forgot to mention it, but when you were first talking about getting prepared, I learned a lot. So I was chatting with other restaurant owners, but I listened to so many of these podcast episodes, and I applied a lot of those podcast episodes while I was going through this journey.
Oh, cool.
So it's almost like instead of working in a restaurant to learn from one restaurant's experience, I got to every episode learn from a new restaurant. So within a 1 month time frame, maybe I learned from 20 different restaurants.
Yeah.
So
it's super powerful to be able to put all this knowledge into one spot. And I was curious to know how the show is.
I would say that this is where I've learned the most about restaurants.
Awesome. Glad to serve. My pleasure. And how can we connect with you if we maybe want to come join your team, or maybe we're early restaurant owner ourselves and
So
we want to
I
support
love
group.
Instagram. My handle is asliceof.life. And then the restaurant is Powerhouse, Haus Pizza.
Yeah, so Powerhouse, like the German Haus.
Yes.
Yeah. And just again, thank you so much. The episode number is 677. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/677. I'll have a summary of today's discussion, as well as any tools and services recommended and how to connect with Anisha. And Anisha, again, thank you so much. Oh, I almost forgot to ask you to call somebody out. I'm all over.
Yes.
It's so obvious I have not had coffee this morning.
I would say I have a lot of respect and inspiration for Holy Matcha, which is a matcha place in San Diego, because they've done an amazing job with their brand and design. And that's a lot of people. I mean, they have good food, but people go there because they're so attracted to the brand and design, and that's why people are sharing it.
You can't underestimate.
Yeah,
branding.
and the owner of that is Geraldine. Yeah.
Geraldine, look up. I'm coming after you.
Redora, I think, yeah.
I'm not sure. I'd love to get you on the show, and now I'll say it. There is no questioning, Anisha. You are unstoppable. Cheers.